How we doing, everybody? It is Jimmy King with WrestleLaunch. I hope you are all having yourselves a fantastic Thursday. Me and Eddie Kingston are here to let you know about what we thought last night about AEW Dynamite live from West Virginia. I can't really remember exactly where specifically they are, but they were in West Virginia last night for their episode of Dynamite, which started off with a segment explaining the night's matches because we have a bunch of high-profile matches to lead the night off. We have Darby Allin going up against Brody King. MJF will be going up against Kevin Knight, the Jet, the TNT champion for said TNT belt. We're also going to see Dominion defend their titles against Kris Statlander and Hikaru Shida. And I believe there was another title match on the card, but off the top of my head I can't remember, but it's in my notes, so let's get right into it. First and foremost, we come out with MJF because we are starting the night off with Kevin Knight and MJF, and Taz is back on commentary. I am personally a huge fan of Taz's commentary. I like Taz. He's always been a fan of, or I've always been a fan of Taz. Can do no wrong in my mind. I also am a fan of the fact that you have Taz on commentary, and Taz has always historically been that heel-leaning commentator, and he does kind of bounce back and forth with Don Callis quite a bit at some point in time, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. MJF versus Kevin Knight is the match that starts the night off. It is the TNT Championship match. At some point in the match, MJF ends up taking Jericho's camera gimmick and kicking Knight, and there's a moment there where he does everything he can possibly do outside the ring and his usual MJF heel tactics. You end up seeing MJF get a beautiful flipping cutter against Kevin Knight, and there's a point in the match, because Mike Bailey came out with Kevin Knight, that Taz talks about how MJF did nothing wrong, and the only thing wrong about MJF is that he doesn't have a belt, and he calls Mike Bailey Taekwondo Jones. Honestly thought that was kind of funny. Kevin Knight, though, honestly, this man can fly, but because MJF is as smart as he is, he doesn't fall for a lot of the tricks that Kevin Knight normally does when he is in his matches, so he is able to hit most of his maneuvers, some of these crazy reversals that I've ever seen, some crazy stuff. Another innovative cutter from MJF. He's got a couple of those in there. The story of the match is the Jet's knee, as in fact there is at one point where he jumps off the top rope and his knee buckles, and because of that, MJF focuses on the knee throughout the majority of the match. Eventually he does go to get the title, and as the ref is taking the title away from him to take it out of there, Max goes to try to use the ring, because of course he's got the Dynamite Diamond ring, and MJF gets rolled up by Kevin Knight, who gets the win because of it. MJF in defeat, because of course he is a sore loser, chop blocks the Jet's knee, and that brings Darby Allin down from the fucking rafters. He gets Max in the ring, hits a scorpion death drop. MJF crawls up the ramp and says, "You people suck," which to me is one of my favorite new memes. And as Darby says, Kevin Knight will get a shot next week because of the overlooking, that brings out Brody King. Brody King is on one, and I absolutely love it. When he is in this mindset, he is a beast. He is probably one of the more brutal and safe in that brutality wrestlers you are ever going to find. There is a video package that explains the deal between Brody and Darby. I will admit that they only cover their AEW feuds when they have plenty more over the course of their wrestling career on the indies. Same with MJF and Darby. We come back from a commercial, and it's Cage and Cope, and we find out that apparently Christian Cage has got himself a fractured forearm. Didn't know that. That's what the whole casting is. However, one thing I know about professional wrestling is take it with a grain of salt, because he may or may not actually have said fractured forearm, because later on, Cage accepts on behalf of Cope and he, even though Cope reminds him of his history of I Quit matches in the company. And a quick reminder, Christian lost the TNT title to Cope in March of 2024 in an I Quit match, even though according to Christian, he never said I quit. The Brawling Birds are back, and we have them facing Emily J and Jordan Blade, I believe is what they said her name was. This is an easy dub for them. They have a great momentum in this match. They show a lot of their ability as a tag team. They put a lot of their double team efforts. I genuinely enjoy seeing two birds, one stone. That move is devastating as hell. We move on, and we have an announcement that Swerve made one of the draft picks at the recent NFL draft for the Jacksonville Jaguars, which those of you out there do not know, Shad Khan, Tony Khan's father, is the owner of, and Tony does quite a bit about stuff too. He's part of football operations and what have you. And then we hear from Sky Blue and Tekla. Tekla at some point in time says that people keep asking why she calls everyone dumb bitches, and she says straight up that she would stop if people stopped being dumb bitches. And then at one point in time, I'm going to have to find it, Deanna Purrazzo, which is not at all associated to Dynamite and the show. I mean, she's associated with AEW, but her tweet has nothing to do with Dynamite as a whole, but it's just, she talks about the dumb bitches thing to the point where that's why AEW is sending her to school, because she doesn't want to be a dumb bitch. Personally, that's funny. I need to try to find that tweet. I'm going to put it up here. I am looking forward to seeing what Tekla and Persephone can do. Persephone is a phenom when it comes to this sport. She is on the rise. Great wrestler. Up next, we have Okada versus Ace Austin for the international title. Huge fan of Ace Austin. That dude can fucking wrestle. There has never been a time where he has not impressed me when he was wrestling with Chris Bay or just when he was over in Japan. That man can do anything. I genuinely enjoy this, of course, because we have Okada in the match. Don Callis is on commentary, and I don't necessarily dislike Don Callis on commentary. Like I said earlier, Taz being back kind of gives someone to bounce off of for Don Callis. In fact, Don Callis is ribbing on Atlantic City, which is where Ace Austin is from, and I admit that because of how they run down Atlantic City together, that's part of the reason why I miss Taz. I know that it's kind of a negative that they're doing, but at the same time, that's part of the gimmick for Taz and Don, and that's just, I loved it. At some point in time, Ace Austin does this crazy cool handstand, and Okada even gives him a clap. He does go for it later on in the match, and Okada doesn't really go for it. Austin does this very deep squat at one point in the match, and you can just genuinely see the strength in this man's quads. He does a leg drop off the top. He actually does quite a few leg drops throughout this entire match, just showing off that he and Okada know each other and they've faced each other before. Austin does at one point in time go up off the ropes for a something, but he gets hit with a drop kick by Okada, and the way that Austin sold it, beautiful. I couldn't have sold it better myself. Okada does get the win, and of course, after the match, Takeshita comes out to kind of just give him his usual, like, Takeshita-ness. Again, this slow build and just the way that they're getting it, all Takeshita's got to do is that little poke. It's the little brother poking the big brother, drive him nuts. That's kind of what they're trying to do here. After the match, we see a vignette for Bandito, but this time, it's not the way that he normally does it, because Bandito is normally the one that is out there kicking people out of the buildings and doing things, but this time, it's somebody looking for Bandito, and we end up realizing, because we see Prince Nana, that it is Swerve, who apparently has decided to go after the bounty of Bandito. Now, one thing that I'm going to point out about this, not that I dislike Swerve, not that I don't think Swerve should be on TV, but you literally have a guy in the company called the Bounty Hunter, so why are you having Swerve go after Bandito? I understand that Brian Keith and Bandito have done their thing before, but Bandito is the ROH World Champion. Do something with him. That's all I'm saying. We go to a commercial, and when we come back, we find out that Mox has been taken up on his offer to Will Ospreay, because we see the Death Riders in the back, and we have this goofy little segment where Mox is just super giddy and he like pokes at Pac, who is honestly like the one person that you don't expect him to go after. But we find out that Will Ospreay is going to start training with the Death Riders, which to me is very interesting. I do like the way that that's going, because it kind of seems to me that if they do go in that route, we might see a more methodical and ruthless, imagine that, a more methodical and more ruthless version of Will Ospreay. That is terrifying. We get back and we get FTR down at ringside with Stokely to watch a match between Cope and Cage and RPG Vice. I hate calling them RPG Vice, so I'm going to call them Roppongi Vice. It's Trent Beretta and Azúcar, Rocky Romero. I love that dude. Cage at some point in time has Trent outside the ring, and at that point Dax gets Cage, and with their distraction they slam his forearm into the post, and because he's got that little cast on it, that's kind of what they end up going for. And then as that's all happening, we end up seeing the conglomeration at ringside, and they bring absolute chaos because Stokely Hathaway and FTR get involved in that, and because of the chaos that ensues with the conglomeration, they end up leaving the tag team title belts at ringside. Now, mind you, that comes into play later on. They end up getting the win, and this is what I was talking about with pay attention to this, because after the win, Christian goes and grabs the crossbar between two chairs, and they end up taking Trent Beretta in this crossface, and then after that, it's just completely fucking unhinged, because then Christian grabs a title belt and starts walking away with it, and as Rick Knox is yelling at him about the belt, you pan over to Cope, and Cope has a popcorn bucket on his head walking around with a title belt too. Absolutely unhinged chaos. I loved it. They went to commercial, and when they came back, we have Jericho talking to Renee, and he really does get jumped by the Demand every time he shows up. He's even wearing his shirt, and they are doing that. The Demand whoop his ass, and at some point in time, he's on the ground, and Ricochet does just a backflip over him and goes, haha. I want to assume that at some point in time, there was a plan for him to just do the Rico Salt there, but he decided that landing and just laughing probably would be better, and a lot better for him, too, because I'm sure that would have hurt. We now have our women's world tag team match, and it is going to be, like I said, Hikaru Shida and Kris Statlander taking on Divine Dominion. At some point in this match, because you can kind of see there is a little bit of a rift between Statlander and Hikaru Shida because of the way Shida has been acting. At some point in time, Shida goes to use her kendo stick, and Stat pulls her out of the way, and when that happens, Megan Bayne comes flying in and ends up hitting a hit. And then, because of what happens with the kendo stick, we see Shida suplex Statlander into Bayne, who is in the turnbuckle, and that ends up being part of what's going on. There is that little fighting back and forth. Dominion does get the win here, but because of the little back and forth between Shida and Statlander, they're clearly starting to set up those little seeds and threads of doubt and give you kind of the idea of what maybe Shida ended up doing. We move on from that. We have another Roosh match. I genuinely love seeing this man get so much time. I do. He is great. He wins and he gets his catchphrase out. You mess with the bull, you get the horns. Roosh just coming out there and annihilating people is exactly what he needs to do. I believe he was Fuego. I can't remember the guy's name that he went up against. I found him at one point in time to show Sponge, but he took that beating like a great athlete that he is. So I give him a lot of credit. There's not a lot to be brought up about that match. Just Roosh annihilating people. We see the Ops again. And even though last week Joe said that there were no more spots, he is starting to talk about the fact that, they're going for opportunity. And it kind of sounds like he's trying to also get Will Ospreay to join he and the Ops. So this is starting to look interesting. Although I want to admit throughout this entire segment, Hook looks sick. Like legit sick. Not like he's sick with it, but like he genuinely looks like he's about to throw up. So hopefully Hook's okay. If Hook's not going through something and that was just a look on his face, that's my bad. But like Hook just looks sick. So I hope he's okay. We go to another commercial. When we come back, FTR and Stokely have just left TK's office, they said, and they were talking, and apparently it's going to be OC, Roddy Strong, and Kyle O'Reilly being someone that they focus on and have a trios match that is going to come up. FTR will be teaming up with Tommaso Ciampa to go after the trios titles with FTR. And the crazy thing is, at the end of this promo, because they had a bucket of popcorn dumped on them and Stokely still has a little piece of popcorn stuck in his beard, Ciampa grabs the fucking popcorn and eats it and says, delicious. That man is unhinged and I love it. We have the main event, and of course this, like I said, it is Darby Allin versus Brody King. This match delivered. I knew that it was going to deliver because it's Brody King and it is Darby Allin, but they took each other to the limit, throwing each other around, throwing each other into things. There was an announce table spot. There was a choke off the end of the announce table. Darby Allin hits with a bunch of coffin drops and a bunch of other shit. They pulled up the fucking padding outside and they started landing on the concrete. If you have time today, go watch this. And I'm going to say this right now. I am pretty much going to put my entirety, anything of my professional integrity, even though you guys are just getting to know me and there's not much in professional integrity, but I'm going to say that any title defense Darby Allin has until he drops that belt is going to be banger after banger after banger after banger, because he's Darby Allin and he is willing to die for it. And that's not a metaphor. He has literally said it. That man is literally willing to die for it. What professional wrestling world champion do you know that is so willing to not only die for the business, but die for the belt and die just for the fact that he's out there? But Darby Allin. So I think AEW has themselves a fantastic world champion. Even if he doesn't hold on to that belt for very long, that's still one of the best decisions they ever made, because they just reset their whole world title division. Now, as I was saying before, this is my review. my review. The reason I make sure that that's emphasized is because I want you guys to tell me what you think. Like, comment, subscribe, tell me what you think. It's not just my opinion that matters. I am a huge fan of what AEW is doing, even if there are things that are currently happening in the company that I'm not a fan of, like people benched and other stuff of that line. I just like the fact that there is somebody else out there doing the type of work that I love to watch happen, because I don't know what happened to WWE. They're getting better, but then they're getting worse, and then they're going all over the place. With AEW, it's just kind of, they do good, and I like it. But again, it's not just my opinion that matters, it's yours too. So make sure you let me know what you think. I'm getting out of here. I have a busy couple of days ahead of me, and I will be back for the Saturday Collision review on Sunday, most likely. We also have our podcast that we recorded last night that I've got to get edited and put it up too. So you guys just keep an eye out. We got so much coming. I got to get out of here. 4 simple rules. Remember, the 3 first ones are kind of the same thing, but the last one's interchangeable. But for this instance, stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, and above all else, love professional wrestling, because it's for everyone. I love you guys. I'm out of here.